news stories for you. Firstly, a few hours ago, Getachew Reda again talked about PM Abiy's move to join his forces in the battleground. And secondly, an Ethiopian government-backed writer, Jeff Pierce, has shared a video which is a recording of a Zoom meeting. He is sharing this Zoom meeting as an evidence that Western diplomats are conspiring to overthrow Ethiopian government of PM Abiy. What is this video about, this Zoom meeting? What happened in the meeting? Two Ethiopian figures are also being made controversial who were part of this meeting, Professor Ephraim and Dr. Eleni. Why are they being made controversial? Did they say anything controversial? What was this meeting about? Can we say, is it a conspiracy of the West and some Ethiopian top people against PM Abiy? I'll try to give you my analysis of this video. Firstly, Getachew Reda a few hours ago tweeted, he says that PM Abiy is trying to Africanize this issue, this conflict. And secondly, he spoke on PM Abiy's move to join his forces. I would agree with first point mentioned by Getachew Reda. Yes, PM Abiy is trying to Africanize this conflict. He's trying to make this conflict Africa versus the US, Africa versus the West. We have seen several of his tweets saying as if black man is fighting white man, and that the West is trying to change government in Ethiopia by force. Western media is biased against Ethiopia. That is what we have been hearing from PM Abiy, from his supporters, from his government officials. So, yes, I would agree here. Secondly, he says that he says that it was a drama what PM Abiy announced to join his forces. And Tigray Defense Force so far does not know on which front PM Abiy is. Well, he will never disclose on which front he is. If Tigray Defense Force does not know where PM Abiy is in the battlefield, it does not mean that PM Abiy is not in the battlefield. And obviously, he'll try to keep his location hidden. He will never tell on which front he is. But the way things are happening in the field, it seems he is somewhere in Afar or Amhara region. It would be unfair to say that he should share his exact location. No one shares their exact locations, especially your top people, your channels. They never show your exact locations. So here I would say that Getachew Reda is once again trying to ridicule him by saying that he is not there in the battlefield. Now, a Zoom meeting recording has been shared by a writer who is backed by Ethiopian government, Jeff Pierce. A few days ago, he broke a scandal about some UN employees, and one of them has been withdrawn from Ethiopia as well. I did a video on that, if you remember. UN employees were accusing their top officials in Geneva, in New York, of interfering in the work of UN workers operating in Ethiopia. Now he has come up with another so-called scandal. He says the video recording shows a conspiracy of some Western and American diplomats against sitting government, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmad. What is this Zoom meeting about? Who were part of this meeting? Well, The Zoom meeting, was hosted by an Ethiopian professor, Professor Ephraim, who is heading some NGOs which are working for peace in Ethiopia. He is known for having links abroad. He engages with diplomats in the West frequently. This meeting is being hosted by him. Most of the diplomats who are part of this meeting are retired diplomats, retired UK, US, French, and other diplomats. Most are retired, just one diplomat is serving. He is Donald Yamamoto. He is US ambassador to Somalia. The Zoom meeting is basically a presentation by a guest. Name of the guest is Birhane Ghebreyesus. Birhane Ghebreyesus is TPLF's spokesperson. You might have seen him on Al Jazeera, on other international news outlets. So internationally, he represents TPLF and TDF. He was invited by Professor Ephraim, and he gives his briefing. Then diplomats ask questions, whatever they want to ask about. So it's not a meeting, a conspiracy among diplomats. No, it's a presentation from a TPLF spokesperson, and others are just asking questions. Dr. Eleni, an Ethiopian who is working at the UN as well, and she is being accused of being part of this conspiracy, just asks a question about economic rebuilding, about if transition happens, how will TPLF ensure rebuilding of the losses which Ethiopia has suffered. What's wrong with that? These people, some of them, they have known anti-PM Abiy positions, like the US ex-diplomat Vicky Huddleston. We know that she has been calling for removal of PM Abiy. On Al Jazeera, I have heard her. So nothing new about about Vicky Huddleston's position. Other diplomats, most are retired diplomats, and they have their views, and some of them are openly voicing their concerns, and they've been calling for the removal of PM Abiy. Donald Yamamoto, who is US ambassador to Somalia, he gave some comments against Obasanjo. He says Obasanjo is not helpful. He is not delivering. Yes, that is what we have been saying. He's unable to deliver. What's wrong with that? If an American diplomat, an envoy to Somalia is saying that Obasanjo is not working, PM Abiy is not listening, and we should find some alternative approach to resolve Ethiopian conflict peacefully. What's wrong with that? If Eleni is asking a question, what will happen if transition if there is transition, how will TPLF rebuild the country? What's wrong with that? These people are just asking questions. They are not backing any transition, especially the two persons, Yamamoto and Eleni. I have not heard them in this 2-hour long meeting calling for removal of Ethiopian PM Abiy Ahmad. So it would be unfair to make them controversial. Retired diplomats, they can have their views. You cannot say on the basis of their views that the West and the US are conspiring to remove PM Abiy from power. I would say much ado about nothing. Famous proverb, much ado about nothing. I don't see this video as an evidence that the West and the US, they're conspiring to remove PM Abiy. It was just a get-together of former and some serving diplomats who discussed about the ongoing crisis in Ethiopia. And the guest, Birhane Ghebreyesus, presented TPLF's position about this war. It happens. Diplomats, they share their views, they meet. It does not mean that they back a party. I remember a YouTube channel interviewed me. Pro Tigray YouTube channel, known for supporting Tigray. But there I shared my views. And people then acknowledged that Sajid, you were impartial there as well. So being on such a forum is not something wrong. If even the forum which Professor Ephraim is heading, if it's inviting Birhane Ghebreyesus to present TPLF's position about this conflict, what's wrong with that? Forums are meant to invite speakers. They're meant for healthy discussion and debate. It does not mean that such forums are taking some positions. I personally say much ado about nothing. Watch two video clips. First shows Dr. Elini asking a question, and second shows US envoy, US ambassador to Somalia giving his comments about Obasanjo mediated to resolve Tigray conflict. Thank you for watching.
Relevant for the international friends. We have heard from various, sources and analyses that, Ethiopia has gone back 30 to 40 years. Ambassador Birhane, you spoke of, going back to the Stone Age. So one of the things post-transition or part of transition is the reconstruction, the economic reconstruction of Ethiopia, and some form of a Marshall Plan. So my question to you, Ambassador Birhane, is obviously there are many other pieces that you're focused on, but to what extent has there been some kind of an estimation of the extent of the Marshall Plan that would be required to bring Ethiopia back to even where we were 3 years ago? So that's my first question. The second one is alongside that, beyond the political arrangement of the transitional arrangement and prior to that, the provisional administration that you described, what, in your view, would be also a plan for the social reconstruction, the fabric?
This is Don. Just a quick question. So, Ato Birhane, it's really a great honor. And again, our deepest condolences on the tragedies in Tigray and the loss of life. And we were in contact with many of the people right before the tragedy began, and the death is just unacceptable. What you're raising raises a lot of questions and issues. And in some ways, I don't really disagree with you. And that is that will Abiy actually change? Will he negotiate? Will he actually move forward and cut off his dependence on Isaias and others? And that's really hard. But given where the international community is, and especially after Secretary Blinken's visit to the continent, and you have Sudan, which continues to be a problem, and of course Ethiopia is challenged with Egypt on the Renaissance Dam issue, and of course you have succession problems and bad elections coming up in Kenya, Somalia, and the other areas. Everyone is really looking at some type of negotiated settlement or some way forward to resolve and avoid the anticipated violence with troops now right outside of Addis. As you know, the evacuations have begun. That's a very alarming situation, and there is just a lot of problems. Is there anything that you see that can really, are you engaged in any other alternative mechanisms that's going to kind of resolve this ongoing challenge? Over.
Thank you.
Are we engaged in an alternative? What's the point that you said last?
Yeah, so other mechanisms, because obviously just making conditions on Abiy is not going to work. Abiy is not listening. He is not listening at all right now. And how are you going to reach him, to a person who's really in a corner? And Obasanjo has not been extraordinarily helpful or very active. And so are there any other opportunities that you see?